Welcome to the MindKind Men's Wellbeing podcast with your host, Nick Morris. Before we begin, a small disclaimer. This podcast has been partly funded by Walsall Public Health as a part of their mental health wellbeing grant. We are very grateful for their support, but would like to confirm that they have no editorial input into this podcast or its content. The views, thoughts and opinions expressed are the speaker's own and do not represent the views, thoughts or opinions of either the MindKind Projects, Walsall Council or Public Health Walsall, or any other affiliated organisations. The material and information presented here is for general information purposes only and is not presented as medical advice. If you'd like to support or more information around mental health and well-being, please see the links below. Please reach out. You are not alone.
Hello and welcome to the MindKind Men's Wellbeing podcast. As always, really happy to have you here. My guest today is someone that when we made the decision to actually create a podcast, he was someone that jumped to mind immediately as someone that I have to get on. Amrit, who you will meet shortly, he doesn't like labels, but according to Companies House, he's the director of an organisation called Mettaminds with 2 T's. Mettaminds are a wellbeing organisation over here in Warsaw, and they take a very Eastern approach, I suppose, to well-being. I know Amrit's a Tai Chi master, amongst other things. And we always have really interesting conversations. We come at things from I think different perspectives, but certainly with the same values, and that always leaves lots of really interesting conversations and space for a whole learning. He has a really interesting story that you'll hear about now, and I think there's probably a lot of learnings to take from there. You may not. Your thought patterns and your beliefs may not fully align with Amrit's, may not fully align with mine, but what I would say is core principles is that idea of change and growth and curiosity are things that, from a well-being perspective, are absolutely essential. So as always, comment, give us your thoughts. I think you'll agree. I'd like to think that this is still a new podcast, but it's definitely, we're getting much better at this. We're getting a bit slicker. As always, give us your feedback. We'd really appreciate it. And as always, from the MindKind Projects, if you are in a place where you feel you may need a little bit of extra support with your mental health and well-being, I know many of us are, please reach out to us. Our details are below. Remember, you are not alone. Thank you as always. Amrit, hello and welcome to the MindKind Men's Wellbeing podcast. As I said to you before, when we knew we was going to record this podcast, one of the first things I thought was I need to get Amrit on the podcast, because we always, whenever we sit down, whether it's professionally or personally, we always have the kind of conversations that I think that maybe should have been a podcast.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think probably a lot of people think that. So hopefully this will live up to the hype that I have in my own head. I'm sure it will.
Thank you for having me as well.
No, it's a pleasure. We always kick these off with, just to break the ice, I suppose, with something at the moment, one celebration and one challenge.
Celebration, that's a difficult one because there's lots to celebrate, and I've kind of looking at life now with everything's the glass is full, and that's how I've been celebrating every day, to be honest with you, wins. I think the biggest celebration you have is just seeing people grow, and one person comes to mind where I think the celebration is that we've just took this person who I've got in mind from a place of darkness to a place where they're actually looking forward to life. And I think that's a big, massive celebration for us at the moment. Been through many different services, and it's just like, I think through a place of connecting with some of the work that we do and support, they've kind of got to where they would like to be.
Yeah.
So that's a celebration. A win. Challenge. Challenge has been, I think this year is just getting things off the ground with the retreats that we're starting to do, and it's getting there. And I think that's going to be a challenge throughout the whole of the year.
Yeah.
In terms of fitting it into our schedule, but B, keeping it fresh.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's going to be a challenge, but a good challenge. They're all great challenges.
All
aren't
good.
they?
It's that positive mental
Yeah.
attitude. Positive mental attitude. Now, is this too early for us to do a cheap plug for our retreat, do you think?
Not at all.
Not at all. Any chance, yeah? Any chance? So obviously the MindKind men's retreat, we still securing dates, but that's something I'm really excited about. Just supporting those that for whatever reasons wouldn't be able to normally access the retreat.
Yeah.
Giving them that experience, taking them outside their comfort zone, and just growing and learning together. I think it's really exciting, really, really exciting. It's funny because obviously we both do similar kind of work from maybe different approaches, but certainly with the same values base. And it is those kind of, you see one person's journey, and there's certain things that you know people have achieved that maybe at face value it doesn't seem that huge, but then you know that journey, and
Definitely.
it's those victories, those celebrations. You know, we it's a challenging industry, it's a difficult industry, and you need to hold on to those. And they always, for me, I always feel like they come just at the right time.
Yeah. They come at a point where sometimes you might be questioning, am I going in the right direction? Am I on the right path? Am I doing the right thing? And all of a sudden somebody pops up and says, you know what, my life is looking a bit different. It's not changing because we're not life changing. We're creating a spark to get them and give them the impetus to change.
Yeah.
And that's what we're dealing with, rather than coming up and saying, oh, you know, look what we've done and we've absolutely transformed your life.
Yeah.
The person themselves will transform their life once they're given the right spark.
Yeah.
And it's that illumination that is what we're trying to do.
100%.
And it's like throwing I keep saying this, it's like throwing a whole load of confetti up in the air and hoping one of them lands.
Yeah.
Hoping somebody catches it in their palm and go, I've got it, I understand it.
Yeah.
We call it that kind of like moment of clarity.
Yeah.
And when they get that moment of clarity, there's no holding them back. Then they go.
And isn't it? Yeah, because I've had similar experiences where you do. I think what it sounds like to me is kind of there's certain work that you'll do to support someone to change the social factors in their life. So, you know, maybe you'll, you know, benefits, housing, all those things that impact lots and lots of people. But sometimes one of the key things is that reframing. And kind of, yes, we need to work on what's going on and what's actually impacting your well-being. But sometimes it is that kind of, you're the mechanism in which you view your life, and there's work to be done there as well. And I think that's what really kind of excites me and in some ways keeps me going, is when you hear someone that is, the challenges are still there, like you said, but there's just and now this challenge is in my life and this is what I'm going to do with it, as opposed to, I'm lost, I don't know what to do. It's the old, you know, give a man a fish and all that kind of stuff.
It is, and I think how I work is really simple. It's just one word, and it's love. I know that sounds corny, but I always say to individuals that we work with, when you connect back with love for yourself, love for your mind, love for your body, you know, love for people around you, but it's most importantly yourself, you'll see the world from a different light. And it is reframing, and it's reframing with that actually simplicity. So when I say the love aspect is, if people have got self-love, they'll actually see the world from a different filter. When they have love for themselves in the respect of their body, they will go to another dimension, if you like, in the way that they self-develop.
Yeah.
But from a facilitator's point of view, and I call myself, I don't know, I had this the other day with with Amy. She was like trying to, and Amy works for us. She was saying, Amrit, what's your role? I said, I don't know. I honestly don't know. What's your title? I don't know. And do I call myself whatever it is? But I'm almost like a guide in some
Yeah.
respects rather than anything else.
Yeah.
And when I look at it from my perspective, I have to, and I'm not gonna have to, I choose to look at it from that person hasn't got all of this baggage inside them. Actually, they've got a lot of beauty inside them. And every single person, actually, you've got lots of beauty, but there's things outside of you that are obscuring that beauty.
Yeah.
So it's getting them to look at themselves and see the beauty within themselves. So seeing the truth, the honesty, the humility, the happiness that they can have, and actually identify and get them to see that things are being stolen from them from externalities.
Yeah.
Ego, lust,
Yeah.
greed, want, all of this desire, everything's stealing from at that point. So that's where the point that we come from.
Yeah.
When people actually see that, the people that we work with, it's kind of, well, I didn't really know I could think like that, and actually I thought it was me. I thought whatever it was the problem was, it was inside me, and it's not. It's outside. The only place I can work is inside.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because I get a lot of people that will come through and they'll talk to me about that kind of fixed thinking of I'm the problem. I can't do, lots of limiting beliefs. I can't be, and sometimes what's really interesting to me is people will tell me what they've been through. Some of it, you know, with the work you do, the work that we do, some of it's horrific. Like some of it, you really have to take a step and really, you know, lots of self-care and what have you. And then they will tell you their response, which is an unhealthy response, but also a response that is very natural and understandable. Like people will say, well, I can't leave the house. And then they'll tell you some of their stories about why they can't leave the house. And you think, no wonder. Why is it that you, you know, it's like PTSD. PTSD is such a misnomer, because a lot of the times it's not a post-traumatic stress disorder. It's not a disorder when you hear what the trauma is. And you think, but again, it is that reframing and showing people the strength within themselves. But I know, and we've had these conversations, that sometimes that sense of, you use words like beauty, like love, and they're strong, they're powerful, they're values words, they're feelings words. How is it when you get people, how do you work with people that maybe are quite challenged by that kind of language?
We don't build up to that language. We don't start with that language.
Yeah.
A lot of it, we have a very structured approach. So the first stage of it all is about actually them looking in the mirror.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing, it's self-reflection.
Yeah.
And actually saying, this is where I am, warts and all. So it's deep acceptance.
Yeah.
That stage is very emotional. So we get a lot of emotions, and it's almost like breaking them down. And picking up on something he said, we get them to try and not identify with what they think they are. It's actually what they can become, and actually more around them. So a lot of people introduce themselves as the trauma.
Yeah.
I am the trauma. This is my life. This is all it is. And actually, we kind of say, well, what else?
Yeah.
What else are you? What else? What other things actually define you? And I've never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
And then once we've pretty much broken them down in some respects, it's about building them back up.
Yeah.
And it's kind of saying, well, actually, what are your values? What do you stand for? What's your purpose? What kind of person do you want to be? Think of it as a blank sheet. You're a blank piece of paper. You've got the opportunity to rewrite anything you want to do. Your timeline now is starting from today.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Yeah.
It's like, what? What do you mean? Well, what kind of husband or wife do you want to be? What kind of daughter or son do you want to be?
Yeah.
What type of employee do you want to be? What type of friend do you want to be to your friends?
Yeah.
I've never thought about that. Well, let's have a think about that. What
Yeah.
values guide you?
Yeah.
You know, what's your purpose in this way? What's your intention? So it's actually getting them to kind of think in that way. But we can only do that until they've actually delabeled,
Mm.
actually say to themselves that I've lived my life through this focus, and the focus is trauma. The focus is holding on to something that they keep reliving,
Mm.
and that sometimes with this stage, the person doesn't even know that they're holding on to that trauma.
Yeah.
It's got so hidden within the side them that they don't realize it exists until you start delayering.
Yeah.
And you might think that actually it's the bills, my relationship that's caused it, my own mental health, but they realise actually it was something that they didn't even realise they were holding on to.
Yeah.
And when you get to that point, that person has clarity, and then they can start saying, and it's a really scary place, because you think all of this stuff that I've defined myself as is no longer there. And I call it uncomfortable suffering, or
Yeah.
sorry, comfortable suffering.
Yeah.
It's a suffering in that comfortable space, and you're just accepting.
Yeah.
And then once you've broken that down, it's kind of what do you want to do now?
So it's from what it sounds like, is very much putting away layers. You said the word layers, putting away the layers, and actually almost like a tabula rasa, you know, a blank slate of okay, so this has defined you. And I use a metaphor a lot about you know, what baggage are you carrying. I think a lot of people use that metaphor. And then once you've taken from that baggage what serves you, so what lessons have been learned that serve you, let go of that baggage. Well, who's left? And whatever's left, well, who do you want to be building from that point? And again, that can be really, really challenging to do that safely.
100%. It's not. It's we. Before we start working with people, and we say to them, "This is how we work."
Yeah.
We're coming from a completely different perspective. It may not be for you.
Yeah.
So we do have people who work with us and stay with us. They become different people.
Yeah.
They do. It's change. People who don't stay with us, they dip in, they go out, but we don't say goodbye to them. We say, when you're ready, come back. And the way that we work in the stages, like I said, the first stage is quite emotional. It's like, doing anything like mirror work is daunting.
Yeah.
If you really truly look in the mirror and you look at yourself and you say to yourself, who am I? What am I? What have I created over these last 20, 40, 50, 60 years? It's daunting.
Yeah.
It's not a great place. But unfortunately, that's where I started with my own journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's actually going, I've created this. I've created what I've created in my life. And what I haven't done, and we talk about this a lot, is that every moment, every minute, every second in your day has a learning potential. And that learning potential is to learn more about yourself. So even coming into this podcast today, it's a learning potential.
Yeah, totally.
It's actually what I can say, well, what's the point of doing it? Or I can say, what's the point of doing
Because
it?
you're going to reach millions and millions.
Yeah, I can say, what's the point of doing it like this in a way? But what's the point of doing this? Actually, I'm throwing that confetti, or I'm throwing something out there that actually some of the words that you and I say may reach somebody, and it might get them to reach out. So that's why we do it.
So you touched upon your own journey and the fact that at one point in your life you had to do that mirror work, look at yourself in the mirror, whatever that looks like. So if you're comfortable, can you tell me about before you had to do that mirror work, before you felt you were ready to do that mirror work? What was life like?
So it's like this. It's like, you know, you've got the tools and they're there. They've been there all the while.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you get into a place that's caused by many different contributing factors. So relationship, you know, are you on the right path? And you realise you are. But relationship being strained.
Yeah.
Career, not being in the greatest place where you are in the career. And I don't mean that from a career point of view that status point of view.
Mm.
At one point, you know, I was a national I was national director
Mm.
on an SMT, earning good money, you know, senior management team, but just not where I wanted to be, I suppose. I'd shifted jobs, going from a family environment job where I had lots of autonomy to a job that I'd left for money, which
Yeah.
I'd never recommend. And then you've got that going on. You've got not knowing who you are, not liking yourself,
Yeah.
not being in a way. And it wasn't just one factor, everything was compounding. But it
Mm.
all came back to one thing again.
Yeah.
And that's because from a very early age, I didn't like myself.
Mm.
And when you get into that stage, anything you do in your life which is superficial, clothes, job,
Yeah.
car,
Yeah.
looks, all of these things that don't mean anything.
Yeah.
And you just literally, you're plodding along through life and you're thinking and you're papering over the cracks
Mm.
until all of a sudden it just goes poof.
Yeah.
And it's just almost like a big mess.
Yeah.
And you're trying to make sense of it. And that mess is just, it's like a hole that you've got yourself into. And you're looking at the hole and the light there is right up there and you're down there. And it's a massive depression.
Mm.
All I remember when I was at my lowest point, I suppose, was just walking around and nothing mattered. It was just, and pardon my French, everything was crap.
Yeah.
Everything was dark. Everything was, it was dulled down, and that's all I can say. And it's probably the worst place I've ever been.
Mm.
And to culminate it off, I quit my job.
Yeah.
So I remember going into Sheffield, going there and having a one-to-one with my manager. It was like, I was a year into my job. What do you want to do? And I said, I want to leave.
Mm.
First time in my life, I'd handed in my notice and I had 3 months to work. And I thought, oh, you know, I've got 3 months till the final day came. And I thought, I've got nothing.
Yeah. So what did you do? What did you do at that point?
Wallow at home in self-pity and shame and hear family members, especially like parents, how are you going to pay the mortgage?
Mm.
You know, kids looking at you as if to say, now you're one of the, you know, you were doing something and now you're not.
Mm.
You know, and status and I suppose profession is a big thing. You know,
Yeah.
we ask each other, what's your profession?
Yeah.
We've all got an answer.
Well, interestingly, and I did this experiment in one of my peer support groups, where there's some people that are unemployed, some people that are employed, but I asked them, introduce yourself without mentioning what your job is, unless you absolutely love your job and it's part of who you are. And I know particularly for men, that's the first. How often do you meet someone and within the first, you shake hands, what's your name, and then tell me about yourself. The first thing that you say is your job. Now, if you love what you do and it's built into, you know, your values, then great. But if you don't, why is that the first thing that you offer up to someone? Because society tells us that is who you are, particularly as males, although certainly not only as males. But I think that kind of cultural echo is still there, although it is changing, thankfully. But you are the money that you bring in.
Definitely, I think you touched on it there. It's like you're talking from a male perspective, a man having this kind of, you know, almost like egotistical label, an ego-based label, but it goes one step further. When you come from a culture, and an Indian culture,
Yeah.
where actually having a status
Yeah.
is something that defines who you are, where you live, what car you drive, what status you've got.
Yeah.
Are you a professional? And to not have that profession is a big thing. And I realised with the work that I do is that if your purpose is your job and the job is taken away from you, you have no purpose. So what's the point of carrying on?
Yeah.
Because that purpose was defined for you. It's the reason why you get out of bed. It's the reason why you love your children. It's the reason, one of the big reasons why you pay your mortgage. You've got a wife and everything else. Your job is your purpose.
Yeah.
And if that's taken away from you, it's like your life's taken away from you. Now I've reversed this. I say to my people who I work with, forget about your job
Yeah.
at the moment. That gives you purpose, that gives you some structure. If your job wasn't there, what would your purpose be? So looking at it from that perspective, that's where we start looking at this value-based system,
Yeah.
building up through values to get people to think of another dimension of their life. So that's what happened. I spent the worst probably 6 to 8 months at home, getting up in the morning, doing nothing. And I remember this. I was so scared to put on the heating. I didn't put the heating on. So
Yeah.
I remember it was cold. I sit there with a blanket, binge watching rubbish on the TV,
Yeah.
and wallowing and going off and dropping the kids to school and just walking and walking. And all I remember is just walking, and didn't even know where I was walking. It was a major haze, depressed, crying, kids going off at them, until I thought, you know what, I've got 2 choices. You know, I either pull myself together or, you know, I leave this earth.
Yeah.
And the leaving the earth was the easier way to look at life at the end of the day.
And that's like, if you look at the research into men's suicide, one of the key, it's not necessarily seen through the lens of men don't necessarily see it through the lens of like a mental health crisis. It's more, I suppose, a lack of foreseeable actions that they can take to fix their life. So basically, I'm all out of options, and the option seems to be that you know, taking my own life. And that's obviously, we've shared my journey, and that's very similar, very similar.
It's not the best option to do. But it's a logical one at that.
Yeah, it feels like that.
It was temporary, and
Yeah.
it was like, actually, you know what? Come on, dude, you're stronger than this. You've got so much going for you.
Yeah.
So it was actually the protective factors that actually pulled me back away from it.
So talk to me about that. Talk to me about, because this is, you're painting a you know, a picture that's dark and sad and very relatable. You spoke about a spark. What was that spark?
The spark was that I thought to myself, it was like, mate, you're a strong individual. What's going on with you?
Yeah.
How the hell have you got yourself into this position
Yeah.
where you're actually thinking in this mindset?
Yeah.
So what I did, and I chose to do, I became logical. I became logical.
Yeah.
And I thought, right, I've got this time now to reinvent myself.
So tell me about that, because that's an interest, and I think I know what you're getting at, but expand on that. What does that mean to become logical?
Connecting back with spirituality.
Yeah.
More so, because you know, your spirituality in some respects is something that is quite nebulous. It's not fact. It's faith.
Yeah.
Faith is belief. Belief is something that doesn't exist, but you think it exists.
Yeah.
So faith was actually faith in what I'd grown up with, and that was my own faith, which was quite strong, and it was there. But a lot of the tools that I already had.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of like self-reflection in a positive way. I'm a teacher. I'm a lecturer and a teacher. Where a lot of our professional formation was around reflection. So it was sitting down and saying, actually, you know, reflect on some of this stuff where you've come to a point in your life that it seems like a dead end, but actually it's not. It's a crossroads. I can go in that direction, or I can go in that direction.
There's choice.
Massively. Choice is the biggest thing when we fall into poor mental health.
Yeah.
Choice is the thing that actually we lose.
And that's the cruelest, completely agree. That's the cruelest thing about you know, severe depression, clinical depression, or, you know, generalized but severe depression, is that it makes you feel like you lack choices and that you have no agency of your own life. That's very similar, and I've shared this to my journey. Very similar in so much as I was doing a job that status wise was pretty good. Very bad breakup. So a marriage breakup. So I just didn't know who I was. You know, I just didn't. That was part of who defined me. Lots of other things, and that kind of walking around a lot. And I think I've shared with you before that quote. I was really close to ending my own life, and so rock bottom became the foundation in which I rebuilt my life. And that spark was that was my spark at the time, was, well, actually, there has to be at least, let's just try. And it wasn't that I fully committed to, I'm not going to take my own life. It was like, I'm just going to try and exhaust a few more options. And I think, and that goes back to like the work that I do at MindKind, and I'm sure the work that but I know the work you do at Mettaminds, is sometimes it's about, let's just put a few more steps in before we do anything we can't undo.
Protective factors there.
Let's just build those protective factors.
But it was logical, because like one day I'd flitter out of it, and the next day I'd write my will.
Yeah.
Then the next day I would flitter out of it, and then then I'd sort my money out. And so it was going in and out, you're flittering in and out. And the thing is, what took me out of it, and one of the big things was connecting back with my training.
Yeah.
And because I've done martial arts, and I still continue to do martial arts, I've been doing it for a long time, and going down my Tai Chi journey, it came logical that where I was in a deep yin state.
Okay.
Yin means down, it means it's connected. If you think about water, think about water as being the deepest ocean.
Yeah.
The deepest ocean, which is dark.
Yeah.
It's stagnant and still, but it's suffocating.
Yeah.
And the only way that you can get out is by moving up.
Yeah.
So what I needed was rising yang. I needed some yang, which was actually purpose.
Yeah.
And the purpose was the thing that I had to find in that stage. And I should say had to find is because if you don't kind of like, I wouldn't say force, but find that motivation to go to get there, you'll stay there even longer.
Yeah. And that pressure, if we use that metaphor, that pressure of being in that stagnant water will not go. What's quite interesting is that, excuse me, extending that metaphor, is that the thing that will sustain you, which is life, that will bring you purpose, can also be the thing that when not handled well, and when you go too deep, is the thing that suffocates you. So for me, it sounds like from what you're talking about, it's the compounding of all those things that actually, when you're functioning and you're well, bring you purpose. So paying the mortgage, or paying your bills, or paying your rent. Now that can be something that you think, God, I've done really well today, and I've got that covered. And for all of us, that's easier, for some than others. I appreciate that. But sometimes it's those things that actually can give us purpose when we feel that we're lost and we're unable to find that path. That's those compounding factors that can really drive us down. And it is about, so for you, finding that spark, so you reconnected. How did you? One of the things that I often think about when and I know you work with people with strong suicidal ideation, as well as do I, is creating that space of possibility. So creating that, these are all the reasons why I feel that I shouldn't be here, and I can't deal with these things. And then creating that space for someone to go, okay, I'm not arguing that those aren't things that need to be addressed, but how do we create that space where we can step back, look at it logically, and create a plan? Like, what would you say is what is the step to creating that space?
To connect back with themselves it goes back to this, and this is how I worked on myself.
Yeah.
And this is where it translates into the work that we do. It was going back to the key source of pain.
Yeah.
And what was it? And actually confronting that.
Yeah.
And the main thing was self-love.
Yeah.
I didn't have the drive to actually think that I was good enough for anything. And as everything. So just tell you a few things which you probably don't realise. I've done quite a lot in my life, and I'm nearly 50 years old, and I've done quite a lot in terms of, I've worked in fashion.
Yeah.
I've done elements of modelling.
Yeah.
It was never good enough.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
I worked at the clothes show for a while as well.
Yeah.
Did loads and loads of bits where I was out there, and it just was never enough, because actually I never even liked myself.
Yeah.
For a long, long time. And I know where it came from. It came from childhood, and it came from source. So when you're confronting those things, you're actually trying to distinguish the thoughts, but also connect back and actually give yourself love every single day. When you wake up in the morning, instead of saying it's a rubbish day, I might feel awful. It's a great day. It's going to be challenging. There's some certain things, but the challenge is where you work. So if you don't want to look in the mirror, you look in the mirror. And you actually find something that you like about yourself, and you work from there, and it's actually instilling that sense of love. So it's where the steps that we create is the identification of the pain of source, the source of pain. And when you've identified that, that's where we work. That's the work that we need to do. But we do it as a community. We do it together.
And I think that's one of the keys. Because you do group work, I do group work, is creating that space, particularly with men, where you can be that vulnerable to look at that source pain. And one of the key things that I find is having people that have been on that journey as role models to be like, look, I've been where you are. And I think ourselves in our roles as leaders, I would say, but also as role models. And we could argue that we're not always the best role models. No one is. And we slip ourselves, and we've discussed that. But being able to demonstrate to someone that and that's the power of this podcast, I think, that actually you can be in that place and you can create that space. And there's not necessarily something, when people hear about this, and it is kind of the Jungian hero's journey. And one of the things that I sometimes worry about is that people hear my story, your story, other story, and say, yeah, but that's them. There's something about them that I haven't got. And my argument is that we all have that. We all have that. I suppose in many ways it goes back to love. We all have that thing that's really special about us, or we have something that's positive about us, no matter how hard we try and find it. And sometimes just tapping into that and just looking at that. And sometimes for some people I've worked with, well, do you know what? You feed your dog every day. Great, we'll work from that. You're someone that cares, right? Let's work on that. Maybe that's one of your values. Well, do you know what? You get up and you shower every day, and you look at, okay, that's self-care. Sometimes it's just finding those small things.
It's really simple. I think sometimes in mental health field we can really complicate things. We need to have the right technique, the right structure. And it's you do, because you need to keep people safe. And that's the bottom line. But actually, it's really simple. It's getting people to reconnect with themselves again. You lose that connection. You lose yourself. We call it in the philosophy that we have, you lose yourself in the flow of life. And when you get lost in your flow of life, it's like going back to the sea analogy. It's like the sea. When the sea's rough, you haven't got a boat. You're gonna go under. When it's calm, you'll be there. You'll be bobbing up and down. And there's a quote that comes to mind. The quote is this: build a raft of meditation and self-discipline to carry you along the ocean. So that's what we do, and that's what that is the structure that we create. Self-discipline, it is creating structure. And when we say meditation, it's always reconnect back to yourself. And when you understand it more, you'll find that you're not reconnecting back to yourself. You're reconnecting back to essence.
So this is really, look, and I love these conversations, and you know that my thinking, there's parallels to certain things. We think differently, but there's definitely, we always go back to values and somewhat esoteric. But again, that goes back to how do we for some people, this idea of love and source and yin and yang and all of this kind of stuff is so esoteric. It's so not necessarily challenging, but it's so different to someone's line of thinking when they've got, well, that's great for you guys to talk about, but I got bills to pay, I got mouths to feed, and you don't know what's happened to me in my life. And of course, how do you work with that? Because I know you do. How do you make sure that your message, that your guiding principles and the way you work, but how do you make sure that that's digestible to people that may not quite be there?
So our mantra at my Mettaminds is very simple. It's accessible well-being.
Mm.
What does that mean? It's by actually demystifying.
Yeah.
How you do that is difficult.
Mm.
I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to say that every organisation can do this.
Yeah.
I've got 25 years of knowledge of dealing with Eastern philosophy.
Yeah.
And that's what we're dealing with.
Mm.
We're dealing with, if you like, a lot of this knowledge comes from yogic, Qigong and Tai Chi, which is over 2,000 years old.
Yeah.
A lot of it comes from that alternative source, which is, it's not new.
Mm.
And even in the Western world, we've had that. We've just lost connection with it.
Yeah.
So we're all skeptics. How's that going to work? We want a proven evidence-based model.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Yeah. We want pathology.
Yes, we do. We want something that's proven. The proof is trying it yourself. So
Yeah.
what we do really well, and I'd like to say that we do really well,
Mm.
is that we use a lot of the Western stuff.
Yeah.
We actually show people how a lot of the Eastern stuff is at the heart of it. So, for example, mindfulness
Mm.
is something that a lot of people do.
It's huge now.
It's not new.
Yeah.
It comes from being present, and it comes from the Eastern philosophy.
Mm.
A guy called John Kabat-Zinn who looked at mindfulness and came up with mindfulness stress-based relief
Yeah.
activities and programs. It was all based on him spending years and years and years in places like Tibet, China, and India,
Yeah.
and actually looking at the philosophy there and why people are so happy,
Mm.
relaxed, calm, not caught up in life. And this is what we try to do,
Yeah.
is actually say there is this,
Mm.
but here's the science.
Yeah. Yeah.
Eating well, for example. Eating well, part of Tai Chi is eating a Tai Chi diet. What's that? Eating with the seasons.
Mm.
Eating natural food. How's that going to help my mental health? Well, here you go. Here's a Harvard paper.
Yeah.
Here's the research that's been done, which shows you that there is, if you eat bad food, it's
Yeah.
bad for your health.
Yeah.
And this is why it reduces cognitive ability, etc. It's taking a lot of energy from your gut, which is your gut. If you work on the vagal nerve is connected into the gut. It takes a lot of energy, makes you more emotional, etc. So when you're doing it like that and you're breaking it down
Mm.
over a period of time, people will start to understand its relevance.
Don't you think that that's true of more of that understanding of its relevance is definitely something that's happening in Western culture as a whole? I mean, you know, that obviously the gut being your second brain, things like that. For us, it's meaningful activity and meaningful connection. That's I suppose two of the main principles that we work on is having something to look forward to and having some good people to look forward to it with. And as protective factors, that's absolutely massive. But what you find now is that actually the NHS is in many ways catching up to that now. So, you know, social prescribing, I know we both get referrals. So it is about, like, well, look, there's room for medication and there's room for all that. So of course there is, you know, big advocate for that. But there's also room for this kind of the social factors and those things that feel a little bit more fluffy, but actually for me are the things that make life worth living.
Yeah, we have a program.
Yeah.
Our program's Open Wellbeing.
Yeah.
The reason why I call it Open Wellbeing is we ask people to be open
Mm.
and try.
Yeah.
So part of that structure is we're going to learn, and learning is actually learning why we do some of these practices.
Yeah.
Looking at the science behind it.
Yeah.
So, for example, when we do meditation, we don't just say, "Oh, breathe,"
Yeah.
you know, and it's going to make you better. It's actually, we look at there's lots and lots of there's probably around over 250 research papers now have been written, and we go through the research. So one of the research papers is Dr. Benson, who came up with the relaxation response in 1979.
Yeah.
You look at some of the stuff that he's written around the relaxation response. 2 double-blind, parallel, one of these gold studies that he did, and he found out that a few minutes of breathing a day actually makes you more relaxed.
Yeah.
So when you're actually saying, here's the science, here's a technique,
Yeah.
the next stage of open wellbeing is you learn, you experiment.
Yeah.
Learning, go out and do it.
Mm.
Come back in 2 weeks' time that you've done some breathing exercises every single day. How you feeling?
Yeah.
Feeling a bit more relaxed. Fantastic.
Mm.
And it's like, okay, I want an appetite to know, learn, and know more.
And that's
what it is. It's like
Yeah.
give somebody a tiny little bit of relief from suffering, and they see the benefits of it.
but also possibility.
100%.
Also possibility. One of my favorite things, and I think we've spoke about this, 'cause I know you've experienced it too, is when I've kind of in a group setting or one-to-one kind of shown someone a box breathing or you know, whatever it is, or maybe I've shared a study, or maybe we've just spoke about a certain technique. One of my favorite things is that when people come back and go, oh, I did that and it really helped, but actually I did a bit of research and I found this and this and this and this, and I'm like, oh, it's possibility. You've realised now that actually there's other ways of looking at this situation, and I think that's absolutely massive, and it's really, really key, really key.
So one of our aims on our programs, and the reason, and then going back to, you know, connecting, it's not about quantity.
Yeah.
It's actually saying to the person, work on one thing.
Yeah.
After the program's finished, keep working on that one thing.
Yeah.
And come back.
Yeah.
Because that will do, it'll be actually like that'll be momentum.
Yeah.
I've done this, and I've created the habit in my life.
Yeah.
I've seen the benefits. So it's that routine, reward, habit formation.
Yeah.
You know, and looking at that. Once they've done it and they've got the benefits, they'll want more.
Yeah.
Want more. It's that, and that's the way that we are.
It is that learning to learn, and learning to the possibility, the learning to learn, and actually, yeah, there's another way of looking at these things, and actually this thing might not quite fit for me, but actually just taking part in the process of learning, and actually the possibility that there's another way is absolutely massive.
This is the way we work with our programs now. We've got 3 programs, and that's all we will ever have, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So the first program is breaking down those barriers, that there is another way.
Yeah.
And that's what open wellbeing does. It is all about possibility. So it's breaking down therapies into their components of what the underlying principle, but creating a safe place that people can ask questions that they're probably not,
Yeah.
you know, they're not comfortable asking in other forums, if you like. Then we take them through, actually, now you know, let's look after yourself. So we take them through self-care.
Yeah.
And our self-care is a lot of things, like we're learning about acupressure,
Yeah.
learning about points in the body where we
Yeah.
hold emotions, somatic techniques. So somatic is the body.
Yeah.
Body techniques. And then I'm finishing off with something that you do as well, is having that connection. So connection is about obviously connecting back to themselves and their inner truth, but also making sure that they're not on their own. They've got somebody they've got a support network.
Yeah.
And that support network's got to be right for them, whether it's a group of friends, whether it's a peer group, whether actually it's a therapy.
Yeah.
You know, something that they're connecting with. And our last program, which is probably the most difficult one, is something around balance, and it's looking at the practical components of the yin yang principles.
Yeah.
And how we can implement them into our daily lives.
Yeah.
So actually, when we wake up, we actually wake up in a certain element.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we go to bed, we wake up in a certain element, and there's prime kind of activities that you can be doing within the day.
So
in life as well.
So if we took it back to, because there's going to be people listening to this that again say to me and you, well, this is all well and good, but. So if you was to say to, and that's not negating the fact that I know what you do is good, and I've seen the results, but if you had someone that basically said, I'm near to that place where we've both been before, I have 10 minutes a day, or I have very limited time or very limited capability, which is what most, which is what a lot of people may think. And that's obviously not correct, but I can understand that thinking. What would your advice be? What would be like easy wins?
For somebody who they're not connecting with the group, or they're just
Yeah, someone that's by themselves, they've listened to this podcast because they know something needs to change. Maybe they're not quite there, and we've all been there. There's nothing, they're on a journey. Maybe they're at the beginning of that journey. What are like the small things that you think, in your opinion, would really support someone just to feel a little better?
It's quite straightforward and it's quite simple. Create purpose every
Yeah.
day. Just
Yeah.
something. That's all it is. It's like when you're getting out of bed in the morning or going to bed at night. Tomorrow, I'm just gonna go out and I'm gonna go shopping,
Yeah.
or I'm gonna cook myself a meal that I've always fancied to cook. I'm gonna read a little bit of book, even though I don't read. I'll read a chapter or even a couple of pages.
Yeah.
I'll go out and I'll connect with my friends. Somebody I haven't phoned, I do it randomly. I look in my phone book and I haven't spoken to that person.
Yeah.
Drop them a message. How you doing? It's like, seeing how that person is.
Yeah.
And if we all did that, we'd be more connected. So it's just small things, something small, because what we're doing, and I'll take you back to what we're doing in these stages of where I come from. When I'm teaching Tai Chi, I follow one model for everything I do. And even with the Tai Chi, I teach movement.
Yeah.
What's movement? Change.
Yeah. That's I think that sounds really simple, but I think it's really profound, and I couldn't agree more. The idea of for that person, very similar. What would I say? And I think I'd say we'll do something a bit different. And if that's something that makes you feel uncomfortable, as long as it's like a healthy thing, then all be it. And you're right. For some people, it's just getting out of bed. For some people, it's sharing. But a victory.
And that's the thing when you're looking at comfortable suffering.
Yeah.
So comfortable suffering, the only way you're going to come out of that is through movement. And movement is dipping your toe into some, and it's a toe. It's It's not a big movement. It's just a small thing that you say, right, I'm dipping my toe out of my current schedule.
Yeah.
Only very slightly.
Yeah.
Actually, it might be, well, I do get up in the morning and I do go for a walk. Choose another direction. Don't go left, go right, or the other way around. And this is the philosophy that we have. So when I'm teaching Tai Chi, I'll go back to the first stage: is movement, is change, small change.
Yeah.
So when I have students coming in and learning Tai Chi, and this is with all the work that we do. Oh, I've got to learn this form. There's 200 movements. I'm never going to be able to digest all of this. Let's break it down.
Yeah.
Let's do the first section. The first section's only got 4 movements. Let's do those really, really well, because what we're dealing with is change. If you take the whole cake, if you take the whole form, of course it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
How do I learn a form from my teacher? We learn a 500, 600 movement form. We learn it in chunks.
Yeah.
So once we've got that, and then we're really kind of like proficient in that, in the change, we can do it really quick. We can do it really slow. Now it's like you go to this possibility, but more of what we teach is curiosity.
Yeah.
But now it's kind of like saying, you've gone through this movement. We know it. We don't look like you, Amrit, because you've been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
Now I'll say to them, what's the reason why we're doing this movement? These are the reasons. We're putting our hands here because we're connecting back to the kidney. We're moving movement into energy into the kidney. But that's the same with our wellbeing and mental health programs. Why are we doing breathing exercises? So we need to know intention.
Yeah.
Now we've got the intention and we understand why we're doing it. Go back to the hardest thing. The last stage is the breath.
Yeah.
So doing this to a relaxed sense.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing.
And that really becomes, I suppose, in many ways, the principles that you're talking about are very much principles that you can apply to lots of things. So that sense of doing something differently, doing it with intention, outside your comfort zone. I'd throw in, and I know you do as well, celebrate those small. So if you're dipping your toe in possibility and you're curious to see what's going to happen, then celebrate that. Celebrate every step of the way. So if that means that you are celebrating the fact that you made your bed today, then you celebrate it, because that's a victory.
Which is what Jordan Peterson says.
Oh yeah, of course. But that celebration can be, celebrate the fact you text a friend, celebrate the fact that you came through our doors or your doors, because that's massive. And I say that to people all the time, that celebrate the fact that you've been brave, build up the habit of recognizing that, because so often people will recognize all the things that they do wrong, but not recognize the how they've been brave and the positives, and then learn that skill and build that momentum. So whether it's turning left or turning right when you're going for a walk, whether it's reaching out to a friend, that momentum will build, and you'll build, following that process, you will build habits that will support your well-being for the rest of your life. And you'll slip, because we all do. We all
Sleep,
do.
underestimated. If we don't sleep, we repair.
I said sleep, but I also agree. But also sleep. No, you're right, and that's my accent. No, I'm working on this podcast accent. It's coming. But no, I completely agree with you, and I think that's something that I think we live in a generation where, and I'm not just talking about an age generation, I'm just talking about like an EPEC and ION, where we are presented with so many visions of what is so-called success. So we see people that go, well, this person's got his life together. This person's, look at all that this person's achieving. Look at where I am. That feels far too, there's just too many steps involved.
Yeah.
And the step is, and sometimes it is exactly like you say, okay, there's so many forms that you have to learn. Well, let's not even look at those forms at the moment. Maybe we'll get lost in that direction at some point, but let's just look at the next few steps and work out what that is. And then the more steps you take, the more your world opens. It's almost like, do you know those old video games where you can't see all of the map?
Yeah.
And then the more steps you take, the more the map opens up. The work that we do in our Be MindKind course, we get people to set goals early on, and then we revisit their goals after. It's a 6-week course. And we get people to set goals early on and then set goals at the end. And the difference between the goals, sometimes those goals are literally just I'm going to make sure that I eat once a day. Fantastic. That's an amazing goal, and do that. Sometimes those goals are, I'm going to shower every day. I'm going to, whatever it is. But then building on that momentum, the goals at the end. And we ask people, can you remember the first goal you set? And can you remember that? And would you have even considered setting this goal? And that's the same in many ways. I think what you're talking about is the idea you learn the form, but it's slow.
We do it differently in a way. There's no wrong or right in this. It's a different approach. We're quite radical in the way that we don't set any goals.
Set no goals.
At the beginning, nothing.
Okay.
And what we do, we give them a blank intention. And we say, throughout your journey with us, because ours is an 8-week program. Yeah. Throughout your journey with us, your intention might come clear, because again, we're throwing a lot of stuff at them. Yeah. One of those things may stick with them. Yeah. And it's like, that's what I need to work on. Yeah. So it sticks with them. It's like you said, they're coming with an intention. Yeah. And then they'll quickly they'll realise after 6 weeks that wasn't the intention that they wanted to work on. 100%. And what we say is that know the destination, but we don't know the journey. Okay. Yeah. So the destination is this. Yeah. The journey is not defined, because we can define the journey, and it goes back to the word that you said, possibility. It's limitless possibilities. Yeah. We're limited. Possibilities are limited by the way of our thinking. So actually, if you think with limitless possibilities, I can do what I want to do. I can be who I want to be. I can create. I can connect back to nature. I'll give you an example. We had one person, and we've had a group. It's crazy. There was like, we're always giving. This is what's causing our mental health. We're constantly giving. People are taking from us. We need to change the way I am. I said, no. You don't need to change the way you are. That's your natural nature. It's your purpose. Yeah. In life, your purpose is to be this beautiful person that gives, and don't stop giving. But what you need to do, you need to give in a structure.
Yeah.
You need to give him limits.
Yeah.
At the moment, you're giving and you're not filling yourself up. People are taking.
Yeah.
So what you're doing it on empty. How do you fill yourself back up?
Yeah.
So okay, so that's where you need to work.
Yeah. How do you
know where to do?
how do you replenish the well? That's
Yeah.
something, and how do you set boundaries to make sure that they
Definitely.
100%.
And it is boundaries, but it's like, what are those boundaries are different for different people. Yeah, and it is like, for some people, it's reclaiming the word no. It's actually saying, you know what, I don't want to do this, and I'm comfortable in not saying no to you because I'm not in a great place myself.
Yeah.
And I need to work on myself. And when I've worked on myself, I'll fill my cup up. I'll come back. I'll help you, and I'll always help you.
Yeah.
And it's staying true to that. So, you know, not to kind of like go and delve into exactly what we do, but we are guided by 5 principles, and one of those is not living with absolutes. So not living in this absolute mentality.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I'm never going to go on another MindKind podcast ever again,
Mate.
because, you know,
They've been crying out for a sequel.
because he's, you know, like Jamie was so rude to me when I was coming.
I mean, yeah, that does happen.
Fantastic guy, but
Yeah.
what it does, that limits me straight away. It says I'm not going to do something, and I know I would work with you again. And what if from that one experience, it's like I've limited myself, and
Yeah.
now I've got this burning desire to work with you, but then because my pride has been put something, you know, a barrier there,
Yeah.
I'm not going to go down there.
Yeah.
Because it's more mental health difficulties and more mental health kind of stagnation, compounding, whatever you want to do, activeness wherever we are. So the point is that when they're coming in, what we do with radical side is don't set a goal, because the goals will restrict you.
Yeah.
Come in and just listen and learn.
Yeah.
Just connect. And as we go along the way, your intention will become clear.
I think that's interesting, because it reminds me of a lot of kind of referrals that we had, and you touched upon it earlier, where particularly with the men that we work with, is we'll get referrals, and I'll have a conversation, or some of my team will have a conversation with someone, and we'll say, what's going on, basically, you know, nice big open questions, and we talk, and they'll say, Nick, I just need a job, which is what you touched upon. And at face value, you think, yeah, look, you need to pay your bills. I'm not saying that you don't need a job, but then exactly like you said, that the more you work, the more you realise that actually that need for a job is just a symptom of something much, much deeper. Yeah. And actually that's where the real work is. And then I'm not saying that suddenly, you know, everyone becomes a hippie and doesn't have a job, and we all, you know, that's not how it works. But you need to understand where those feelings come from. And it's like you were saying about not liking yourself, and actually, how do you reframe that, and how do you challenge that in a really healthy way, and actually how do you celebrate your victories, and how do you go on that journey? And I think that's one of the beautiful things, is that when you have someone that really doesn't like themselves, and then they get to a point where they're celebrating something, and they realize that they do like themselves, and actually there's someone that's worth saving, or there's someone that's worth living, or there's someone that has something to contribute, and that links with social capital. I think that's meaningful connection, meaningful activity.
It's a bit, I don't want to get too deep with it, because it'll send.
Have we not got deep already?
No,
We're getting deep.
In terms of why, when I challenge myself about, well, actually, you know, you don't like yourself, and why is that? It's kind of thinking, when I look back at it and I reflect it, because I'm in a different place now.
Yeah.
You know, I know my journey. I don't know how I'm going to get there, because things change.
Yeah.
I've got my structure.
Yeah.
So it's like the ocean. I'm navigating it, and it might take me off this way, but my structure gets me back on course.
Yeah.
And you go through stages, and then one of the stages is that what I've got here, my vessel, and the essence within inside me, doesn't belong to me.
Okay.
It belongs to the source. It belongs to
Indeed.
oneness. So why am I disrespecting my vessel? Why am I disrespecting the inside?
Yeah.
The oneness that I have within me.
Yeah.
Once I've got to grips with that, I can only but just be in love with what I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
This is,
that's the. I'm sorry, but it's a bit
no, no,
deep.
no, and it is, but it's beautiful, and it's an ethos, and it's, you know, there's an ethos that I definitely share there. You know, I'm someone with faith and of faith, and I do believe that my body's a gift. But even regardless, if people if people aren't of that thinking, which is fine, we're all of different thinking. One of the key, I suppose, in some ways, it's the difference between. I had this conversation the other day where someone was saying, "I have to go to the gym." And I'm like, "Why do you have to go to the gym?" And they say, "Well, look at me, my body's out of shape, and I hate it, and da 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 da." And then you go, well, and then they hate the gym because they hate their body, and they hate the fact that they're in the stage where they have to go to the gym. And you say, well, okay. What about if you thought of it the other way, where you to go to the gym is a gift, and you're honoring your body because actually you've been given one body, and you're someone that is worth. You are someone, in essence, your body's worth looking after and protecting. And sometimes it is that reframing of thinking. Now, whether that comes from spirituality, religion, or just a sense of kind of
Yeah.
of your own self-worth, or an amalgamation of all of them, that reframing of actually there's something intrinsically of value within you.
So going back to that analogy, and let's go for let's go for the where your destination is, and your destination could be your long term. I hate to call it goals, but a long term goal. Let's call it that.
Yeah.
That language. So your long term goal is to lose weight, to feel better about yourself.
Yeah.
So let's reframe that and say, actually, I want better health.
Yeah.
And better health as a byproduct, I will lose weight and I'll feel a lot better, because it is a feeling at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So how do we affect that? So practicality wise is that's your intention. Now let's sow a seed every single day. So what is your first seed that you want to do? To affect health, and we go back to the person again. How would you improve your health? I'll eat better.
Yeah.
Okay, stop there. Again, that's an intention in itself. So, but it feeds with your big intention.
Yeah.
So now we say eat better. Oh, well, I'm going to cut out crisps. I'm not going to drink anymore. I'm going to cut out chocolates. I'm going to never have a takeaway again. No, but we're dealing with absolutes. You know that it's not.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the case.
Yeah.
So what can you do? So right, let's have a look at a quick win. What's your biggest vice? Chocolate. Okay. How many chocolate bars do you have a day? 5. Right. That's 15. 5 is 30, you're looking at 35 bars of chocolates a week. Can we cut that down to?
Did you just do
20?
maths on the podcast? That was impressive.
So we've got these chocolate bars. Let's cut it down, right, to 20, right? And let's after 3 weeks, 4 weeks, let's look at the effects that's had on your body. We don't use that language, but let's
Yeah.
back and let's support you with that. Let's give you some alternatives for replacing, because it's quite hard replacing those chocolate bars. Let's give you a few alternatives. Let's help you with some nutrition. So they're supported, and they get to the end of it. My blood sugar's gone down. I'm actually fitting into my trousers a lot better. It's practical stuff.
Yeah.
So now it becomes infectious. So it's like, okay, I'm going to actually now go for, I'm only having one chocolate bar a week. And now I'm going to see what else I can do. Now I'm going to
momentum.
And it's massive. And now what they're doing, they're planting seeds every single day. And it goes back to mental health as well.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling bad and you want to feel better, you don't like yourself, what one thing can you do to actually give you that win? And it might actually be that you tell yourself every single day when you leave, and I purposely have a mirror when I go out the door. So the front door's there, my mirror's there. I put my coat on and I look at myself and I say, great.
Yeah. Yeah.
You still look good.
Yeah.
You're right.
You are. You are.
I didn't even say that. It's just I look.
Yeah.
I look and feel.
You
fine.
feel. Yeah.
And I thank that I'm feeling like this, because one of the things that I didn't mention is my health took a massive plummet.
Yeah.
I was diagnosed with lupus. I was diagnosed with arthritis. So that was also a compound. And one of the things I have to keep reminding myself is that my mind exacerbated my condition. Didn't cause it, made it worse.
Yeah.
So when I walk out the door now, I thank myself that I look after my body, that I can walk. Because I wasn't walking. I've not,
I didn't know that.
yeah, I was, when I was in my worst place, I lost the ability to actually change myself, get changed.
Wow. So now
Lost,
everything that is such a
yeah,
gift, yeah?
lost my ability to actually get out of bed. I couldn't
Yeah.
walk up the stairs.
Mm.
Simple like that. The worst I got is when I was coming from a yoga class and I was on my bike. I went to go on my bike, my body seized up,
Mm.
and I didn't tell anybody.
How long ago was this?
2021.
Mm.
So
So not that
not long
ago.
ago, 2021, early 2021, and I didn't tell my wife. I was crying. I
Mm.
remember myself crying. I live a 5-minute bike ride from the yoga school.
Yeah.
It took me around about an hour and 20 minutes to get back home because I forced myself to get back home.
Wow.
I got stuck in the car. I lost mobility in my arms.
Yeah.
I couldn't start my car.
Yeah.
And again, it was just like, I've got to do this. So you know what modern cars are like? Clutch down, and then you've got to start.
You don't drive a modern car.
Well, I don't know. Well,
I was going to say, let's give that a shout
I
out.
just about put the clutch down.
Mm.
I couldn't start the car with my right hand. I had to lean over, start the car like this. And
Wow.
I don't know how I got home.
Yeah.
I got home and I was determined to get back home. Probably not the safest thing to do,
Yeah.
but when you're in that frame of mind and you don't want to ask for help off anybody,
I think that's
and
what
this is the thing, you get into that place. How do you ask for help?
Mm.
As a strong individual, and
Yeah.
I'll tell anybody to read The Curse of the Strong book.
Mm.
Curse of the Strong. Read the book. If you're this leader, you're this head of the household, you're this person who's a strong manager who's created projects and worked for big organizations, you can't even start your car.
But that's the key. That goes back to that role modeling, doesn't it? Because when you say things like that, it's powerful because you think we have to set a precedent. Actually reaching out and asking for support is, and I know it sounds somewhat trite now to say that because it sounds like everyone's going, yeah, but it's very true. I mean, one of the key things when I say, I'm a mental health social worker, or I work in mental health, whatever venue I'm in, like if I say that to people, so if I'm introducing myself, at a, I don't know, at a presentation or whatever it is, but if I tell people what I do, bearing in mind that I just told people that you shouldn't introduce yourself as your role, but if I do, if people know what I do, there's always someone, almost always when there's a certain amount of people, particularly a man, that will come up to me and go, and just share something with me. They'll say, "Oh yeah, I've been dealing with my," and it's almost like this little secret. Yeah. And I think the more of us that are able to share these stories of vulnerability, the better it will be. I think another thing that I wanted to pick up on that you mentioned there is that sense of, well, you gave the example of someone that says, "I'm just going to give up on chocolate," or "I'm just gonna now I'm gonna." I'm really depressed. So suddenly I'm going to go from being agoraphobic to I'm going to join a public speaking class. I mean, if you can do it, absolutely amazing. But NLP talks about, and I know other practices does, the ecology of what you're doing, and how does it fit in your life now, and how sustainable it is. I suppose in many ways it links. I know you don't like goals, but SMART goals. Sometimes it is about kind of, yeah, if you want to have one eye on the horizon of exactly what you want to achieve, fantastic. But it's about making sure that your decisions in the short term are ecological. It's better to do something. I think sometimes I can be a victim of in the past where I will be like, right, so I've got to run a marathon and I've got to eat only chicken and rice and I've got to be getting up at this time in the morning every morning, and then I write out my list.
Listen to your language, Nick.
Yeah.
It's commands.
Exactly.
Got to be.
Yeah.
Got to be. We lose the ability to speak to ourselves by saying God choose to.
I agree.
And
that's the point.
And
it is about making that choice and making and setting it a little bit more ecological, setting a goal or setting an intention that is just a lot more grounded in possibility, because that momentum will build and build and build and build.
Just to put it out there, there's nothing wrong with goals.
Yeah.
I don't use that terminology because some of the research that I did with my groups,
Yeah.
they felt that goals were restricting them
Mm.
because they were had to put something down
Yeah.
and they had to stick to it.
Mm.
So we just say, we're going to change something. We don't know what it is.
Yeah. Let's see what
It's going to be a
changes.
change. And it is this, it is a slow,
Yeah.
it's a slower process. It's something that people are more comfortable with. It's like by the end of the course, you've got to leave with being able to do this, 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 and this. I don't know, we have to do it for funders.
Yeah.
But what we try to do is that actually, at the end of the course, I just want you to know where you're going.
Mm.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
I use a phrase a lot about being lost in the right direction
Of course
sometimes.
it is.
And I think that you, in regards to, if you are specifically, I see myself doing this at this time in this place, that's great to give you a course, to give you a true north. But you're right in the idea that actually sometimes you don't even realize your own possibilities or the world that's open to you until you start venturing. The map is not the territory. You walk forward and you realize, actually, my goal was that, but what about this and this and this? Or actually, I'm a little bit further and I realize that that's not for me, but this is for me. It goes back to curiosity and possibility.
Definitely. There's a lot of men out there at the moment who are doing some of this work.
Yeah.
And we've been very fortunate to meet some of them. There's Amrit from the Little Earth Centre, and Randy, who does breath work, Gene Atwell, who does his coaching. There's all these guys who have started on this journey who are really, really helping men.
Yeah.
And I've been fortunate to be, to share some of for our paths to cross.
Yeah.
And we're all doing alternative work, which is great. But I think it's why you're doing it.
Yeah.
And why you're doing it is because we believe that this is how we can reconnect back with ourselves.
Yeah.
And it is a reconnection. Always use this analogy with anybody who's suffering. And 99% of us as a child at one point in our life, we were happy-go-lucky.
Yeah.
There is that percentage, obviously, that haven't been unfortunate. But and you look at the behaviours of a child,
Yeah.
they have this love for life.
Curious.
They have curious, they're limitless. You think, draw a triangle, and what colour is a triangle? Any colour. That's what creativity is like fantastic. There are limitless possibilities. You are curious. It doesn't have to look a certain way. Hence why some of the work we do with art and craft is just amazing. It's amazing for the individual. I'll tell you, I'll give you an example of something that we did, and we say be like a child. So I had a group of predominantly ladies actually, and we did a guided meditation. This guided meditation was imagine, breathe, connect back to the breath, grounding, and right, we're going to walk through a meadow or a forest, wherever it is. We're walking, you're feeling, you're hearing, you're seeing, and I want you to focus in on a piece of nature. Really focus on it, look at it, smell it, touch it, look at the vibrancy of its colours. And then what we did, we came back, and then there's a massive piece of paper.
Yeah.
Everyone just drew.
Yeah.
And then we drew, and then we gave them some canvas, and then they put it onto canvas.
Best, isn't it?
And do you know what happened? And this is the most scariest thing. They all pretty much drew very similar things.
Yeah.
And their colour palettes were all the same. And they all did it in isolation.
Yeah.
And that was really strange but beautiful at the same time. And these are people who said that, we can't draw. But when we gave them possibility and we gave them this limitless connection, they produced. And it was kind of taking that learning and saying, do you know what? You can do this here. Just think of what you can do out in the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Through relaxation.
So you looking at where you are now, and you are the man that time forgot, we know that. But you've lived a rich life that has been kind of full of ups and downs. If you could say that person that was just before that spark happened, where you I suppose changed your life and went on that journey, knowing what you know now, What would you say to that person that's just quit his job, that he's feeling his lows, that's watching Jeremy Kyle on TV every day or whatever it was at the time? What would you say to him?
Find some purpose.
Yeah.
Get out. Find a group.
Yeah.
Go and see your GP.
Mhm.
Go and connect. Try different things.
Mhm.
You know, it's okay to watch TV.
Yeah.
But don't keep watching TV all day. It's okay to have bad thoughts.
Yeah.
Don't let that bad thought make the whole of your day. And I think this is it. It's like we always say, don't do this, don't do that. Actually, it's okay to have some of these natural thoughts.
Yeah.
It's okay to feel bad. It's okay to be anxious. It's okay to get stressed. They're natural things that we're designed to do as humans. What's not natural is to live our life through them.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that, you know, where I personally think I've learned along the journey, and I'm not perfect. I'm practicing every single day. My learning potentially is massive now because I put myself from a learning mindset.
Yeah.
I'm constantly learning. I'm learning more about myself. I'm learning about other people. When I have a group, the first thing I will say to them is that we're learning together. I learn from every single one of you. I'm going to be taking something away from you. And not one course or group or program is ever the same because I'm working with humans, I'm working with individuals, and we go always we follow obviously a structure, but it's I spend more time on one element, of course, because that group needs it.
Yeah.
So I for example, our job centre group, we spent more on anxiety and motivation because that was more about that, and it was about understanding how we form habits.
Yeah.
And looking at the science and the nuts and bolts of habit formation. And a lot of it was about them understanding that, you know, I have one gentleman, for example, he had quit his job. He was made redundant, and he was in quite a senior role, and he came onto our group, and he took away from us that he's not at the end of his road.
Yeah.
He's actually at the beginning, and he has the possibility to redefine himself.
Yeah.
And he didn't realise that. And he hasn't got that from me. He got it from actually looking at within himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. That's what gets me up in the morning at the end of the day. I now have the life that I want because I don't get up in the morning and think, oh no, I've got to go to work. I've got to go in there and deliver this. Actually, I'll go, wow, I've got people come in and I don't know what they're going to share with me today. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
I'm going in with a complete different mindset. And this is why I don't know what you want to call me, but as a director, whatever it is, I will always carry on and be at the working end of the organisation.
Yeah.
I don't have this. And this is one thing you'll learn from corporate life. Everybody has the desire to go into strategy, go into kind of like, we want to lead the organisation and we really want to go take it that direction. I've got both.
Yeah.
I lead my strategy of my organisation through my intention that I've set.
Yeah.
But I'm doing it as well.
That's the
So
best.
I never lose focus of it. I've actually I've run my groups, and I've always said that Mettaminds will never want to rule the world.
Yeah.
What we want to do what we do well.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That's the key thing. I when we've spoke about this before, and it's the same with MindKind as well. I don't think there'll ever be a time where I'm not, but there won't be a time where I'm not. Maybe I won't deliver everything, but I've got to. Well, I won't. I'm not delivering everything at the moment, but I have to be talking to people. I have to be building those relationships, and I think that comes from a sense of curiosity and love. I really love people, and I'm curious, and you learn every single day, and it's such a privilege for us to be in the role that we're in. But I think the key thing, because I know that people listening to this might not be in that place and do what they love, and we do what we love. We're so blessed. But at the same time, if you'd have said to me, and I don't want to speak for you, so correct me if I'm wrong, but if you would have said to me then when I was at that really low point, that this is what your life would look like, I wouldn't believe you, because I didn't think I could be that person. And I think that's one of the key things, that when you are in a really, really low place, life doesn't have to be exactly what it is right now. And if you were to let's go worst case scenario, if you were to take your own life, you are not just cutting off more of the same every single day. You are cutting off the possibility of what your life could be. And I think that's really, really key, is the idea of you will not be exactly where you are now if you do some things a little bit different. And that might be scary, and that might really push you out your comfort zone. But you'll be amazed by how things change, how massively things can change from just, you said about a seed earlier, from just that small little change that you make. And it's amazing to use it, the spark that can come from that.
It's a really easy exercise if you're sitting at home and you're thinking, well, I don't know what I want to do. It's really easy. Just get a piece of paper, cut it in half, and put what I don't like.
Mm-hmm.
List them all.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier to do that because we have a negative mindset.
Yeah.
Naturally. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
100%.
all the bad stuff is like Velcro. We sticks to us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Too right.
Anything that if I said, oh, you know what, Nick, I love your car. I love your jumper.
Mm.
You'll dismiss that, and if
Yeah.
you say, oh, Nick, you know what, you're rude. You'll
I
remember that.
remember that forever.
And that's the way. That's the
100%.
way that life is at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So if you write a list, let's do it easy first. All the things that I dislike,
Yeah.
I don't like about where I am at the moment.
Mm.
Then the next one, write the things that you like and or you want, where you want to be.
Yeah.
So for example, what things that you like, it might be, when I look back on it, what do I like? I love music.
Mm.
Put music down.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm not going to get me a job, is it? Okay, but I like music. It might actually, listening to some of my the tracks, it might help me and motivate me. What else do I like? Or what have I got? I've got good communication skills. Put those there.
Yeah.
And sooner or later, and this might be like a month's worth of practice, you're going to look at that and you're going to go, do you know what? I've got a lot of things to offer.
Yeah.
I've got skills to offer. And I suppose that's where I went, not actually doing that exercise, but I did it mentally.
Yeah.
Like I know where do I want to be? Why do I feel disconnected? And it is looking in, I want to be helping people.
Yeah.
I don't want to be stuck in a boardroom, and I don't want to be managing massive functions. For what? Because I'm not affecting what I want to affect, and that's people.
Yeah.
So what do I want to do? I want to work with people. That's all I knew. And then from that, my intention became clear. Not a goal, but my intention became clear. And that's where possibility kept striking me every single day.
Yeah.
And I go back to
You were looking for it.
Not even looking for it. I'm putting myself in an environment where I'm collecting it. It's like it's been thrown from heaven.
But you have to be mindful of it, because it's like what you said earlier about that sense of, you see, I do this thought experiment in our online thing, and I've in our men's online wellbeing course, and the idea is that I say, look around the room and how many green things are in your room, or blue or red, I can't remember what I say. And then so person will look around the room and I go, okay, how many blue things are in your room? So not the colour that I asked. And then obviously that's a little bit discombobulating, because I wasn't even looking for that. And the thing is, we've taught our brain, and you're right, through this is how we're programmed to look for the negative. And you can link that into evolution and what have you. But you've trained your brain to look for everything negative within yourself, within the world, within life. And we all, I say there's exceptions to this rule, but in general, people are more, as you said, more inclined to do that. Well, how do you reprogram that? And for me, one of the key things one of the really easiest habits that I picked up, simplest, not easiest, was gratitude. And every day, I would write something that I liked about myself. And sometimes that was really, really challenging, particularly at the time, because there was not a lot that I really liked about myself. But then that developed as a skill, and there were more things that I liked. So what I liked about myself and what I liked about the world around me, sometimes it was a nice cup of coffee in the morning. Sometimes it was a family member. Sometimes it was the sunshine. Sometimes it was being able to sit down and watch some trash TV for an hour, whatever it is. But it's almost reprogramming the brain to look for the possibilities and look for the positives in life. And like you said, whether you believe that that's something that um, you know, God, Allah, the source, or just karma or whatever it is, no matter what's presenting it, you need to train yourself to be able to look for those possibilities. And I think that's what gratitude did for me.
You're putting yourself into an environment, and look, it's a mindset. If you have a negative mindset, it's like you said, your filter is that negative mindset. When you've done NLP, you'll see some of the things, the way that our value culture submodalities work, and everything else. That's how we filter the world. So we're gonna filter. So we have to affect the filter. And it's easy way to look at this. If I keep doing negative things, that's what all I want to attract is negative things. Noel Gallagher says, right, he said he writes every single day. And he said sometimes he writes a whole load of rubbish, but there's one thing that he may write and it will be the next hit. Because he said, and this is his word, he says, I believe that God is throwing stars down from heaven. And one of these, I've got to be there to catch them. If I'm not there to catch them, somebody else will catch them. And he said, when I write every single day because I might catch one of those stars. And then he turns around and he says, Chris Martin catches those stars every bloody day. So he's talking about Colbert. He's talking about, obviously,
But to be able to put yourself out there to catch those stars, when you're at home, maybe you're gaming every day. Not there's anything wrong with gaming, but just as an example, you're doing something unhealthy every single day for an unhealthy amount of time. The idea of getting out there to even put yourself in the arena to catch those stars is quite scary, and I just think again it goes back to it's small steps and celebrating those victories.
It's never external though, Nick. This is a thing, it's always internal. So you don't have to get out. And this is a thing.
Oh, completely.
For example,
I mean, get out your comfort, get out of your situation, not necessarily go out.
So for example, I'll give you some practical ones. Instead of gaming for an hour, you might want to listen to a podcast. Hey, we're doing one now.
You might want to listen to this one.
Listen to a self-help video on YouTube. You might want to read the book, and I'm not saying read a chapter, read a couple of pages. You might want to start drawing. Listening to your favorite piece of music, reconnecting with something that you used to make you happy. It doesn't have to be something that you're going out to a group. It can be something where actually you say, you know what, I'm doing this, doing this, and potentially something good could come out of it. I'm a big believer of this. I'll be listening to something, I'll be reading a book, and it will just all of a sudden boof, and I'll stop. I'll go to my laptop, and I'll write a program or I'll write an exercise, and it's like it's not related to that. It just sparks something off, and I sit there. If you look at my phone, I've got a whiteboard in the office, and I'll write on that whiteboard. I came up with an equation on habits. Don't ask me what it is, because I've got it there.
Is it it's trademarked?
No, it's not trademarked. I've came up with an equation on habits. It's like a divided by times by, and it's like wow. I don't think of it as me. I'm just connecting back, and I'm allowing things to happen. And this is where we start to take the ego out of it. It's not mine. It's there. I'm just the vessel to communicate that with the skills that I've been given. And luckily, you got to look at this. And I'm not being egotistical. My skill set is to take complicated stuff and make them simple. Do you know what I mean?
Which is a very I think it's a very valuable skill. I think it's a very valuable skill, and I think it's when we look at that through the world of well-being, the domain of well-being. You get all of these TikToks telling you the perfect morning routine and the perfect meal, the perfect workout, the perfect well-being strategy. Actually, sometimes it's simpler than that. Action that isn't perfect is better than just sitting there thinking about what you're going to do.
It's got to be about yours. It goes back to, again, when we look at habit formation, the top of the equation was authenticity. It's got to come back to authenticity.
Yeah.
You know, and it goes, and this is where you relinquish some of the stuff and you go back to yourself and you say, well, actually, what are the skills I've got? And I looked at some of these things, I did that, and I think, right, okay, I'm an academic.
Yeah.
You know, from where I began my journey,
Yeah.
I was a researcher. Did some work for the MOD, for the defence, the ministry, the defence committee, for the House of Parliament. So I did some research for them. Did my masters. I did my MEd.
Yeah.
So I'm quite academic, and now those are one of the things that I thought, actually, you've got this background. How can you bring those skills, instead of like leaving it on one side, into what I'm doing now? So that's where I bring the science-based stuff.
Yeah.
It's there, and I can bring it in, and then
Yeah.
it goes back to when I worked for a pharmaceutical company. What was I doing? Translating clinical studies into actually making them simple to understand to the end user.
Isn't it funny, the fact that some of the points in your life and some of the lessons that you're learning, you think to yourself, this isn't serving me, and then actually you get to a place where you realize that you're applying lessons and skills that you learned at a time where you thought, I wouldn't even, where did that come from? It is that journey.
Gifts.
Yeah.
And the thing is you look back on learning is looking back on aspects of your life that you've and thinking of the skills that you developed. I don't look back on my career and say it was all really bad.
Yeah.
Of course it wasn't. It gave me exposure to absolutely everything. Who can actually say that they've had a meeting in Downing Street? Do you know what I mean? Who can actually say that when they looked out their office window, they saw Big Ben?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's I relish that life, and most of my career has been around taking ideas, other people's ideas,
Yeah.
and making them into operational businesses.
Yeah.
Now I'm just doing it for myself.
Yeah.
And that's it. That is it. So I don't ever want to look back on my career. I've got the choice. I can use the filter of, it was rubbish, it was negative. No, it's given me a house, it's given me security, but more important, it's given me skills.
Yeah.
And that's just looking at having a mentality of abundance rather than nothing, than nothing.
How do you apply that though? And I think you can, just to be clear, I'm not challenging you on that, because I think you can apply that abundance mentality to almost any situation. It's easy for some people, dependent on where you're from. But how do you apply that? What would you say to someone that hasn't had that is in a really not great? How would you apply that abundance? Because I think you can. I'm not trying to challenge you on that, and I've done it in my work before.
This is looking inside them again. This is going back to you're authentic. Just because somebody else in front of you has got you've had a journey.
Yeah.
How we look at that journey, we usually look at it in a negative sense.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at some of the things that you've learned, life experience. You know, for example, we're really fortunate to work with Good Shepherd.
Yeah.
And that on the project, a lived experience project. I look at some of the people that I've fortunate to guide, and forget all of the academia that are still, they've got lived experience, which is so valuable.
Yeah.
And it's getting them to think about what they've learned from rather than what they've been subjected to.
100%.
You know what I mean?
What are the lessons from the journey that you've been on? And I think that is, it can be very challenging. How did that experience serve you? What can you take from that?
Always a challenge, Nick.
But but there's always something that you can. There's always value to experiences.
So one last thing I would say to you is that the way that people do it is that you've been practicing from a negative point of view.
Yeah.
When we do Tai Chi, we don't just set up a class and we're going to become masters. We practice every day.
Is that what you say to people?
Yeah, there's no way we can become masters.
So who's been
practice?
So
and every day is a practice.
Yeah.
So every day is a learning opportunity. So the more I practice, the more easy it becomes. You've practiced in one way, and that practice has now become you. That's your mindset.
Yeah.
So now we've got to unlearn that, but learn from it.
Yeah.
And practice in a different way, and that's where we do slower practice.
Yeah. So not undo that practice. You've got to take the lessons from you're building on that practice.
Always
You're not undoing
You're
it.
taking the learning potential from where the journey that you've been on.
Yeah.
The journey that you've been on is valuable because it's given you life experience. It's given you all these experiences, but you're looking at it from a negative perspective.
Yeah.
We find it difficult to look at things from a positive perspective.
Yeah.
How can you look at somebody? How can people look at an experience of abuse, for example, in a positive way?
Yeah.
You're not, but you've got a choice.
Mm.
You can either keep reliving that trauma and suffering,
Yeah.
or you've got a choice to actually say, I'm laying that to rest. I'm forgiving it, but I'm learning from it. It's now going to become a practical part of my structure.
Yeah.
I know what I don't want in life, and I know the people and the energies that I don't want in my life.
Yeah.
It becomes part of your value system rather than a destructive part of your life. And it's a different relationship then.
Mm.
And that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to change the relationship with all this negative stuff, and actually turning it into something that can be really constructive in your life. It's never about forgetting, it's about learning.
I think we need to.
Yeah.
I think that's the perfect. That's the perfect end. I think exactly what you said there. Amrit, I said to you very early on when we started this that when we started a podcast, I wanted to get you on here. It was everything I hoped it would be. Maybe if you could tell the people what you've got going on.
Yeah, so we've got a few programs going on. We've got Open Wellbeing, which runs on a Wednesday and Thursday, and we have self-care. We also have Balance. We run Tai Chi classes on a Monday and a Wednesday. We started meditation, and we're doing some retreats as well. So we've got a few self-care days that we're doing, promoting self-care from lots of different perspectives. And we'll be doing some workshops. So if you want to kind of join in, just go onto our Eventbrite page, which is at Mettaminds, and everything that we do is at Mettaminds, 2 T's. If you do the 1 T, it goes to a software company in India. So just be mindful of that.
Just be mindful of that. I like that. I like that. And that's based in Warsaw and across the West Midlands.
Yeah, so we are based in a lovely place. We're in the Arboretum, happen to be in a very secluded spot. We've got an orchard outside, hence it's the Orchard Pavilion. So we are quite private. And we've got 2 big things going on at the pavilion. We've got our bell tent, which is in full force, and fingers crossed we've got a container that we're going to be converting into a sauna and ice bath. So we're going to be doing some therapy around that as well.
We'll be there, and I think hopefully if you'd be happy to, maybe we'll do a podcast on tour from the Belto app at some stage.
Yeah,
I'd really like that. And it'd be amazing. Amrit, that was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the MindKind Men's Wellbeing Podcast. I hope to see you next time.